Good evening. Welcome in RNK Usino classes. Block number 4, Unit number 2, Epistemic Holism and Theory Laden Observations. Objectives. Richard Rorty claims about the demise of epistemology seen in the last unit is based on incompulsability of or the impossibility of a natural framework within which cognitive disputes can be resolved, and the main reason cited for incommensurability is the hermeneutic circle having at once a component of understanding and a component of knowledge involves semantic holism as well as epistemic holism of those we examine the semantic holism in the last unit and found that it does not have kind of lethal quality that would make understanding an alien language impossible. What remains to be examined is epistemic epistemic holism to see if it leads to incommensurability. We shall do that in this unit. Its basic purpose is to introduce the students to the questions whether claims to incommensurability and the impossibility of epistemology follow from epistemic holism. In the process, we shall examine various visions of epistemic holism and claims to theory-laden observation from the confirmation holism of the Cohen-Duhem thesis to Rorty's claim that epistemic justification is a matter of social convention. 2.1 Introduction. Ordinary we take direct experience in the form of observation and perception as the ultimate test of something being true. And hence basic to epistemology, the assumption is that such experience, also called empirical evidence, provides the neutral grounds on which we can decide the truth of contested truth claims, but it has become commonplace in contemporary philosophy to say that observations are not neutral, that they are theory laden. If so, epistemology would seem to be impossible as there are no neutral grounds on which to determine the truth of statements. This is epistemic incommensurability. Does this conclusion really follow? In order to answer the questions, we need to examine epistemic holism, that is holism regarding justification of beliefs, which comes in various uses and colors. We shall begin with confirmation holism, one vision of epistemic holism, and move on to the different visions of theory-laden observations that supposedly make epistemology impossible. 2.2 Confirmation holism. Confirmation holism is also called as Cohen-Duhem thesis after its proponents. Pierre Duhem suggested that the truth of individual statements can't be determined apart from the theory of which that they are parts. W. B. Cohen, whose theory of radical translations we studied in the last unit, extended the idea and argued that one only single statements but even single theories can't be tested in isolations from other theories and even from the whole of science. Taking Duhem and Cohen together, confirmation holism is the view that individual statements or theories can't tested for truth in isolation from other sentences and theories. In the background, a sentence or a theory or hypothesis is always a part of a larger whole and can be tested only within that larger whole. In the world of Cohen, our statements about above the external world face the tribunal of sense experience not individually but only as a corporate body. This has the consequence of the same consequence that no individual observation can fully determine the truth of falsity of any given theory. Because of this consequence, confirmation holism is also known as the underdetermination thesis. The idea that a theory or hypothesis taken in isolation from other theories or hypotheses can't be tested by observation to determine its truth. It is another way to saying that rival theories of the wood can be equally oriented by observation. The same observation evidence can support rival theories of the world. Consider an example. Astronomers of the 19th century observed that the planet Uranus did not follow the path predicted by Newton. If observation were to determine the truth of a theory, then his observation should have been taken as indicating the falsity of Newton's theory, but this could not be taken as a straightforward evidence for the falsity of Newton laws because there were other possible explanations. There could be some as yet unknown factor that makes Uranus behave the way it did. It may also be the case that God was making nature behave in this peculiar fashion to expose the hubris of modern science. The points of that observation is not directly keyword onto any theory. There could be alternative theories that explain the evidence. Eventually, not rejecting Newton's theory turned out to be wise. The observed deviant behavior of Uranus was indeed caused by an unknown planet affecting the path of Uranus, and that planet Neptune was discovered in 1864. 2.3 implications current is justification. Implications if not uh, 2.3 Coherentist justification. Implication of not being able to test any single theory in isolation is that an unfavorable test result can't be taken as the refutations of one's favorite theory. It can always be argued that the unfavorable result is due to the falsity of another theory. To quotation Queen against the total field of science is to understand by its boundary conditions experience that there is much latitude of choice as to what statements to reevaluate in the light of any single contrary experience. This questioning of any direct link between theory and observation is significant because it undermines a foundationalist metaphor of knowledge as an edifice that is built brick by brick on the firm and unshakable foundations of observation. Confirmation holism tells us that our beliefs or theories are not individual standalone items but always in relation beliefs and theories. The foundationalist metaphor now comes to be replaced with the boat metaphor given by Otto Neurath. We are like sailors who on the open sea must reconstruct their ship but are never able to start afresh from the bottom where a beam is taken away. A new one must at once be put there, and for this the rest of the ship is used as support. In this way, by using the old beams and driftwood, the ship can be shaped entirely anew, but only by gradual reconstructions. This mode of justification is called concurrentist justification. This metaphor and concurrentist justifications could be understood in different ways, some more problematic than others. There is one form of currentism that leads to extreme relativistic conclusions. Relativism also comes in various forms. Epistemological relativism denies that there could be any universal argument on matters through denying the possibility of universal agreement. It holds that truth or falsity of a statement is relative to a social group or individual. Our interest is in finding out whether currentist justification necessarily leads to this kind of relativism, and if it does, what form of currentism leads to it. First, Neurath's boat's metaphor could be taken to mean that at no point are we without any belief standing on a cosmic academic point to survey the different theories to evaluate them from the outside. Once we are in the middle of the sea, we can't get to the shore to build a new ship. We do not have God's eyes view, as Hilary Putnam called it. Let us call it the N no zero point thesis. It is hard to dispute this thesis and has come to have general acceptance among scholars, but does it lead to the extreme form, the form of relativism we are concerned with? It is often through thought that adopting currentism leads to this conclusion, but it need to see that we must realize the two different things that the modern foundationalist attempted to. One was doing epistemology from God's eyes view, looking at all our beliefs from the other outer space as it were without presupposing any beliefs. The second is privileging नहीं यार आज नहीं गई कल से आऊंगी सही बोला था ठीक है certain beliefs as neutral in terms of which other beliefs were accepted or rejected in empirical epistemology. The privileged beliefs are observational ones. Privileging some beliefs over the others is quite different from saying that we do not begin on a tabula rasa slate standing outside all beliefs. Therefore, the acceptance of the no zero point thesis does not mean that no beliefs, whether observational or otherwise, have a privileged status. In other words, even after rejecting the traditional foundationalist attempts to build an epistemology from God's eye view, one can still privilege some beliefs. This would be a moderate kind of fundamentalism where we are always within a wave of beliefs, to use an imagery of coin, but the wave of beliefs he talks about is not a free floating balloon that moves in whichever direction the wind blows. Our wave of beliefs is usually dynamic and in that sense surely floating in the air, but it is also firmly tethered to the earth at certain points, so that the balloon is not blown away by the wind. It is this threatening to reality that makes it possible to correct errors and acquire better ways of understanding reality, and this setting is done with the help of observation sentences in Quine's philosophy. But this moderate foundationalism is also a form of moderate currentism, because it accepts the no zero point thesis. Key to differentiating this kind of moderate currentism from the more extreme form is that the extreme forms do not privilege any beliefs, including perceptual beliefs, and the reason for withdrawing all privileges is the alleged theory-laden nature of observation. There are no pure observation. This is the claim that we need to examine in further detail, because the vision of this claim leads to unacceptable forms of relativism. Insert confirmation holism that holism with its implied currentism of justification does not lead to drastic conclusions about the impossibility of epistemology. Currentist justifications is a mode. The task of justifying our beliefs does not start on a zero point in the manner in which Descartes and other modern epistemologists tried to do. It does not to do away with epistemology. It undermines one particular manner of doing epistemology that begins with God's eye view. Check your progress. 2.4 Theory ladenness of observation. Although confirmation holism on its own does not undermine epistemology, the no zero point thesis of confirmation holism often goes together with a rejection of the privileging of any beliefs. It withdraws all the privileges accorded to observation. The reason for this rejection of privileges is the alleged theory-laden nature of observation. That is the view argue that our observations are influenced by the beliefs we already hold. One could also say that what we pre-receive of the world is heavily dependent on the prior theories of already we already believe this is a common theme that runs through much contemporary philosophical literature. This is found in the philosophy of science of Einar Hansen, Thomas Kuhn, Paul Feyerabend, Nelson Goodman, and others. This can be seen as the hermeneutic turn in the philosophy of science. Richard Rorty's stand on epistemology can be seen as a culmination of the trend. This is not surprising because in epistemology, at least in empirical epistemology, observational evidence is taken to be the final arbiter between competing claims to truth. So too in science, observation is supposed to be the basis on which the truth of our rival theories is adjudicated. Now if theory leadness of observations is true, if it is really the case that our observations are not natural between competing or rival theories, but those very theories determine what we receive, then observations reports can't adjudicate between rival claimants to truth. Therefore, we need to examine this claim very closely. Hanson draw our attention to the theory-laden nature of observation in a very dramatic fashion. He asks us to imagine Johannes Kepler with his heliocentric view and Tycho Brahe with his geocentric view, standing together on a hill watching the dawn. When they see the sunrise, do they see the same thing? According to Hanson, when they say I see the sun, each man something different. This is an excellent illustration of Neroth's boat metaphor in actions. He seems to be saying not only that we can't get off the ship, the no zero point of confirmations holism, but also that all the beams of the boat are on per observational beliefs have no privileges because observation belong to the larger gestalt. They are not neutral. Hampson's positions can be understood in this manner when he says that Kepler and Brahe do not see the same thing, and this is the way he has been understood. Taken in this manner, not only would it make epistemology impossible, it would also rules out the possibility of radical interpretations we saw in the last unit. However, Hanson also admits that when Kepler and Brahe stand watching the dawn, something about their visual experiences and dawn that is the same for both, so much so that sketches of what they both see could be identical. This only goes to show the basic ambiguity surrounding theory-ladenness. There are different ways of understanding of theory-ladenness. The least controversial thesis of theory-ladenness is that our observations, at least the observation that can be reported and talked about, involve concepts. Sometimes when Hanson talks about theory-laden observation, he seems to mean this. According to him, when we say that Tycho Brahe and Kepler see the same thing at dawn just because their eyes are similarly affected in an elementary mistake, because being in a physical state is not the same thing as having a visual experience. He goes on to say that one of the influences on observation is in the language or notations used to express what we know or without which there would be little we could recognize as knowledge. This unavoidable role of language or notations rules out the possibility of any pure given in observation that can be separated from all linguistic and conceptual elements. Although the logical positivists tried to do it at a one time, their own very rigorous attempts to identify such pure cases led to the realization that such pure observation is a chimera. If we mean by observation something that can be identified and articulated, then what is observed is not unilaterally determined by what is received by the senses. They are co-determined, so to say, by our existing conceptual periods. If we understand the theory ladenness in this broad sense of being influenced by our conceptual periods, such theory ladenness would not rule out there being some observation that are neutral between several scientific theories, because at least a part of our conceptual periods that goes into perceptual experience may be common to our species, as is the case with Cohen's observation sentences we saw in the last unit. A second way of understanding theory-laden observation is to say that observations are enriched by our cumulative experience. We already saw in the last unit Cohen giving excellent examples to show how the experienced eyes of a chemist can observe copper in a solution, or an expert physician can observe hyperthyroid. Once learning obviously enters into observation in this sense, Hansen's contentions about Brahe and Kepler could be understood in this fashion. He says the layman must learn physics before he can see what the physicist sees. Let us call it the experiential thesis. Experiential thesis. This thesis too does not rule out relatively theory. Natural observation shared shared by the specialist and the layperson. The expert and the beginner is these relatively natural observation that enter into radical translations as well as the adjudications of rival claimants to truth. Therefore, the experiential thesis too does not affect the objectivity of knowledge and science. A third way of constructing theory ladenness is in terms of new discoveries. It says that up to date knowledge learning in a field is a preconditions for making for new scientific discoveries, and the breakthroughs. Let us call it the discovery thesis. The very title of Hansen's book, Patterns of Scientific Discovery, indicates his concern in that book, which was to comprehend and formulate a logic of scientific discovery. Does not discovery thesis affect the objectivity knowledge? In order to answer that question properly, we need to take into account the distinctions between discovery and justification, or distinctions originally made by Hans Richard Bach. The distinction is best understood with an example. 2.5 case study. Our example is a landmark is case in the history of medical science. Lenz seamless working as a medical doctor in Vienna General Hospital in the 19th century noticed the large number of women who delivered their babies in one of the maternity divisions of the hospital died of childbed fever, puerperal fever. A number of factors about this death puzzle seamless, including the fact that the death rate was far higher in the first maternity division, where medical students worked, than in the second division, where ordinary midwives took care of the women. The contrast was follows: year 1844, first division, second division 8.2%, 2.3%; 1845 6.8%, division 2.0%; 1846 first division 11.4%, second division 2.7%. In order to resolve the puzzling happening, Semmelweis began by considering various tentative solutions called hypotheses to the problem. These were some of the possibilities he considered. For example, this excessive number of deaths in the first division. The deaths are due to an epidemic. The deaths are due to overcrowding. In the first division, the deaths are caused by the raw handling of the patients by the medical students in the course their examinations. The deaths are caused by fear generated by the appearance of priest ministering to the dying patients. The deaths due to the positions in which the women in the first division gave birth. Women in the first division delivered babies laying on their backs, whereas in the second division the women delivered laying in their sides. Now that there are many possibilities for explaining these excessive deaths in the first division, only 5 of which are mentioned here. He questions to consider is which one can be considered true. How is one or want to rationally accept of any these 5 beliefs or any other that is not mentioned. This is the epistemological task that confronted Semmelweis. He says about patiently examining his hypothesis. Let us example how he did it. Consider the first hypothesis, that the deaths were due to any epidemic. If this were true, he reasoned, how could an epidemic selectively affect the first division and not the second? That is not likely. Moreover, the newspapers carried not as poor reports of an epidemic in the city. To compound matters, there were some women who delivered their babies on the way to the hospital and were brought into the first division only for postnatal care. Even among them the death rate was comparatively lower than those who delivered in the first division. All of these militated against the first hypothesis. Therefore, Semmelweis abandoned that as a plausible explanation. The second hypothesis is also easy to check for its truth. Semmelweis noticed that the second division was even more crowded than the first, partly because of the bad reputations of the first division. Faced with this data, the second hypothesis was also given up in a similar fashion. Each of these hypotheses had to be abandoned Semmelweis was completely at a loss. It is then that a college of his began to develop symptoms similar to those of the woman suffering from childbed forever, and in a few days he died. The major difference was that will the woman developed the same symptoms after childbirth, his college developed the symptoms after getting a small wound in the process of performing an autopsy. This leads Semmelweis to suspect that the death of his colleague was caused by blood poisoning, or what he considered as the introductions of cadaveric matter into the bloodstream while performing the autopsy. This promotes Semmelweis to make a brilliant guess that the cause of childbed fever was the same. Since the medical students who attended to the women in the first division, unlike the midwives in the second division, often came to the maternity duty after performing autopsy and dead bodies without cleansing their hands properly, they bear the carries of infection. Semmelweis test out this hypothesis by instructing the medical students to properly disinfect their hands prior to the examinations of the women. The results were dramatic, a drastic drop in the death rate even below that of the other divisions. This leads Semmelweis to accept the last hypothesis as true. Not only did it explain the high mortality rates in the first division, it also explained why the mortality rate among the women who gave birth on the road was lower, although their hygienic conditions were not good. They managed to escape being infected by the medical students. There are a number of things an epistemologist can learn from cases like this. Our primary concern is with the distinction between discovery and justifications. The discovery of the real cause of the unexplained deaths originated in the accidental death of the college of Semmelweis. One, the similarity of the symptoms shown by his colleague and the woman who suffered from childbed fever, because the problem of deaths from childbed fever was weighing on him. Semmelweis noticed the similarities, and suddenly the insight dawns of him that the women were dying due to the infection caused by the medical students. Similarly, when Archimedes cried out Eureka, it was because he saw something new, and in coming to that new insight, the problem that was weighing on his mind had an important role to play. Thus, we can readily acknowledge that the genesis of a new discovery involves a new kind of seeing, a change of gestalt that Hanson insisted upon. Then comes the justification. Just because a brilliant idea occurred to him, Semmelweis does not accept it as true. It is accepted only when evidence confirms it. This process can be said of epistemic justification in general. The concern of justification is not so much with how one comes to entertain a belief of hypothesis, but with examining if it is true. Origins of a belief may be as lowly as a lucky guess, as in the case of Semmelweis, a sudden insight, as in the case of case of Galileo or Archimedes or the results of a long drawn out empirical study, but what matters to epistemology is not how an idea originates but how it is justified. It is not that discovery and justification can be separated. The point is that discovery always contains an element of irrationality, a moment of creative intuitions as called proper observed in the logic of scientific discovery, but this intuitions comes to be accepted as true only on the basis of justifications which operates as a kind of controlling device, a sort of feedback on the original institutions. This feedback, the evidence on the basis of which a hypothesis come to be accepted as true, is based on logic and observation that are neutral between rival theories. We shall explore the role of logic in the process in the next unit. What is important for now is that the kind of observation that plays the role of evidence in justification is not highly ramified type, where we can say that Kepler and Brea are seeing different things, but of the kind that Hanson acknowledged as the same for both. It is similar to the kind of observation, if not the same, the kind same that be noted in the context or radical translation, the kind that is more or less common to on us as species. Thus we are led to conclude that our observation are indeed theory laden in different ways, but none of them undermine the possibility of objective knowledge. 2.6 Theory ladenness and justification. The only kind of theory ladenness of observation that undermines epistemology is the one that rules out the possibility of observation that are neutral with regard to competing competing theories in the context of justifications. Hansen, Kuhn, Feyerabend, and Rorty are often considered to be saying that there are no neutral grounds on which to decide between rival scientific theories. Rorty's claim in the last on to that epistemology is impossible because it requires a neutral framework, and no which framework is available. Different discourses are incommensurable. Rorty takes over the thesis of incommensurability from Thomas Kuhn's structure of scientific revelations, but where Kuhn's thesis of incommensurability rules out rational choice of theories is a matter of dispute, to the extent that Kuhn once said, "I am not a Kuhnian." But Rorty draws together the contentions of coherentism and incommensurability in a specific justifications comes in two forms. One is a negative thesis and the other positive. The negative thesis is that nothing counts as justifications unless by reference to what we already accept, and that there is no way to get outside our beliefs and our language so as to find some taste other than coherence. We have seen that coherentism on its own need not lead to conclusions about the impossibility of epistemology, but since the combines it with incommensurability, it would mean that different groups of people and people in culturally different societies have different antecedent beliefs that are incommensurable. Since justification is done in terms of these incommensurability beliefs, it is not a natural neutral process. There are no neutral grounds on which rationality of incommensurable beliefs can be examined. These forms of currentism therefore leads to relativism. If so, not only are we like sailors in the sea, but we are like sailors making different voyages in different ships. This is a fourth way of constructing the theory. Laden observation. His more positive thesis claims that justification is a matter of social conventions. Conventions are not a matter of following reality, say in determining the truth of our beliefs. How warranted is in negative claim, given his rhetorical style. It is not easy to discern if rarity is really doing away with truth and justifications of merely dramatizing the impossibility of old engineering journals suggested that the collapse could have been avoided had the engineer taken into account the documented series of bind failures in similar bridge. But the engineering fraternity was furious with the author of the article, and he was made to resent because they say they saw it is a slur of their professional behavior. Allen concludes that such examples should disabuse philosophers of the notions that knowledge is nothing but the consensus of professional peers. What experts agree is well done need to be so, nor need what they call knowledge with the real thing. Reality has the final say in matters of truth. It can trump even the agreement of the best of experts.